Welcome back to another episode of Infinity Podcast. Today I'm joined by Professor Siqi Zheng, STL Champion Professor of Urban and Real Estate Sustainability at MIT, Faculty Director of the MIT Center for Real Estate, and Director of the MIT Sustainable Urbanization Lab. Professor Zhang is one of the world's leading scholars at the intersection of urban economics, climate policy, and real estate markets. Her research explores how cities grow, how environmental forces shape real estate outcomes, and how public policy and private capital can work together to enable more sustainable urbanization. Her work specifically has been published in leading journals including the Nature Human Behavior, Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, Journal of Economic Perspectives, and Journal of Urban Economics. Professor, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's also my honor to be here.
So, Professor, for the listeners in our audience who do not know your background, how you got involved at MIT Sustainability and everything impact investing, can you give us a little bit more about how you ended up and your work that you're doing now?
Okay, sure. So this year actually is my 10th year at MIT. So I joined MIT back to 2017. So before that, I was a professor, also a professor at that time in a Chinese university, Tsinghua University. So basically, I've been professor for 20 years. So my research area always real estate, and always from the urban and sustainability perspective. So basically, I did my PhD in this area, and then I started to study China's real estate and housing and cities. And at that time, of course, the major challenge at that time was air pollution, not like climate change per se, but a lot of things related to air pollution, congestion, all the urban problems, and how this will affect, will damage, will hurt the city's value, right? So the people, they don't want to stay in those cities with a lot of pollution and very congested. And if the cities, they want to really to keep the talents, want to compete with each other, and want to be successful, the human capital is very important. So they need to improve their city's quality of life. They need to clean up the air. And at that time, I linked that to real estate, say, okay, if people, that's true, when people, they always, they are afraid to choose where to go, where to live, where to work, then you will find those places with higher environmental quality, like better air and green space and all those environmental benefits. And people, they are willing to pay higher price, real estate price, housing price to live in those places. We use that to back out people's implicit demand for those environmental qualities. So that was when I was in China, mainly looking to pollution as an environmental aspect feature. And then when I moved to after I moved to the US, pollution is not like a first priority here, already very clean,
Yeah.
thanks to all this Clean Air Act many decades ago here. But the thing is the rising like climate challenges, like extreme weather conditions and all those aspects became more and more like important. So I kind of start to look into those aspects. So that's basically I frame my research in this way is like if you look at like on one side will be the cities and the real estate and people. On the other side will be the environment, or I call it Mother Nature, the
Interesting.
nature.
Yeah.
And then basically I study how this build environment, like buildings, real estate, how they emit carbon to the entire environment, like Mother Nature, right? So buildings 1/3 of the carbon emission, so that's big. So how those carbon emissions lead to this global warming, right? So how to decarbonize this real estate sector. So that's from this direction. And then the other way around, since we emit so much carbon, the Mother Nature got angry, upset, and then the Mother Nature started like punch the human beings by all these disasters, hurricanes, wildfire. Then how those will affect human beings affect built environment, affect quality of life. So that's the other way around the direction I study. So that's how I frame the research.
Thank you for sharing that. And looking at it from a bird's eye view, like 500 feet above, can you
Yeah.
explain to us the differences between the green economy over in China versus the US and how they compare?
Okay. So yes, that's very interesting question. So of course, if you look at some like pollution indicators, then especially the air pollutants like PM 2.5, PM 10, and SO2, all those indicators, you will see like China is far above the level, very high, than the level here in the US, and because of the manufacturing sector. So because of for the last 40 years, China has been the world factory, right? Produce so much and export-oriented economy all the years. So and then they use a lot of coal and fossil fuel, especially coal and very dirty coal also. And then so basically that really contribute to the pollution problem and also carbon emission. And I think China is the number one carbon emitter right now. And then you compare to US, US not the world factory, but it's a consumption, a
Right.
huge consumption country, right? And then maybe the US customers, you are buying clothes and shoes and all the computers here, that's consumption, but they are produced back in those developing countries, right? And if you give a big picture, numbers will be like at that time I calculate like in this way. If you look at China's carbon emission or energy use, you will see very interestingly, 80% from production, 20% from consumption because they are not consuming that much and their houses, their apartment very tiny, right? Not the car ownership not that high. And for the US, 80% consumption, 20% production. So mainly because of consumption side, big homes and all driving cars, and it's a very luxury lifestyle.
That makes complete sense. Professor, I want to shift the conversation over to the economic portion of sustainability. From looking at real estate specifically, how should investors and developers consider sustainability as a value add to their investment thesis and strategy?
Right. So that's basically the first lecture I always
Mhm.
teach in my class, sustainable real estate. When I teach sustainable real estate, the first class introduction session, I will say, okay, so this is not a sustainable building class. It's not like from engineering side, how you are going to build some sustainable buildings. Of course, that is very important, but other professors already taught. So here we are talking about real estate. So I say it's a triple bottom line, PPP. So it's triple, like three circles intersect. At the center will be the sustainable real estate. PPP, the first P will be the planet. Of course, we want to reduce carbon emission, do good things for the planet. Second one is people, right? You also need to balance planet and people. You cannot say, okay, I want to reduce energy use as much as possible, so I will make my buildings very airtight. So all the insulation and very minimum energy use, and then people inside the buildings will feel no fresh air, no good ventilation, and then people will get sick, right? You need to balance the energy use and the comfort and the people inside the buildings. The third P will be profit. You should do good things for the planet, for people, but if you always lose money, and the private sector won't do that. You cannot just educate them, say, oh, you must contribute to a better world, but because it's a private sector, they are doing business, right? So you need to align the business value with the environmental and social value. So that's how we frame this PPP, triple bottom lines. And then we will focus on the third P, which is profit, and how we can say, oh, why or why not the investors or developers, they should produce or invest in sustainable real estate or green buildings or healthy buildings or climate resilient buildings. we need to look into the chain effect. We always need to first go to the very end of the chain, which are the end users. If the end users, no matter it's tenants or the home, like households, right? Households, if they really value the energy efficient homes, energy efficient office buildings, and all these real estate types, if they are willing to pay higher rent or price for such sustainability feature, the premium, we call it the green premium. If we can really have a green premium, then the investors will be willing to pay a higher price to invest in, and the developers will be able to like put some upfront more higher cost to build such green buildings. So the key thing is the end users, whether they are willing to pay such a green premium. And it's not like always true. You need to look into this market is very complex. It's a heterogeneity. And some places, some type of consumers, users, they are willing to pay such a higher premium because they can get some benefit from that. And other places may not be so. So it's not a single answer. It's just a benefit cost analysis.
Yeah, thank you. Professor, I have a specific question. When it comes to scaling sustainable finance, what are the biggest bottlenecks that the industry is facing right now? Would you say it's like the government or the lack of clarity behind the investments or just how it's such a gray area at the moment?
Right. So basically, I feel several answers to this. The first is I think still lack of information or measurement, good measurement. You cannot rely on the market, say, okay, all the developers, they just self-report or self-argue or self-promote, say, oh, my buildings are so green, you must pay a higher premium. And when I go to the bank should lend me money with like lower interest rate or something, right? So all the investors usually invest in my green buildings instead of other non-green buildings. So we really need a very transparent and a very like standard measure of how green or how energy efficient or how whatever sustainable the buildings are. So and then we need have that thing as a common language that the investors can use to assess, right? So now we do have something like the green building certificate, like a LEED, Energy Star, and all this, but that's only from some like aspects, and it's not like overall. And the developers and the investors, they need more. And it's in you talk about Latin America, it's in some other developing countries, it's not that well developed system to provide such a public goods as information so that the investors can assess the risk and the return of such investment, right? So the investors, when you talk about sustainable finance, mainly the investors from the capital market, right? So they have money and they want to decide whether I should invest my money, my capital, into these sustainable assets or others, right? Then they need to compare the return and the risk of those two different asset types. And then for the green assets, I feel like it's still a lack of this measurement, especially well organized, well recognized by all the market. This measurement of the return as a premium of the return or the reduction of the risk, really to get the capital to flow. And to do this, they need some industry standards, like always like the lending industry, right? So there's many lenders, small, medium sized, and big ones. I guess they need some like big ones to take the lead. For example, in the US case, will be Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and those GSEs, and they need to first start to do this. And they are doing something like the green mortgage, and they, oh, if you are green buildings, and we are willing to lend you money at a lower interest rate because we think you are of the lower risk. Once they have that, other lenders will follow them. And I think that's the thing. And then I think the basic thing is the assessment framework and how to evaluate the risk and return of such sustainable assets.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And do you think there's any way that the public sector, say like government and the private sector, could collaborate to get more clarity behind these measurements or data aggregation, or what can the industry do as a whole in order to promote greater clarity behind these investments and the use case for a sustainable investment?
Definitely. So basically, we should not just rely on the government for sure, and the industry itself should self-organize. And the way is, say, I think now it's a good moment is like because of the big data, because of the AI tools, and some like information, these data startups, and then they many of them now. And for the energy side and for the climate risk side, those startups and later became big companies maybe, and they really produce information is their product. So then they help those building owners say, if you provide us your energy bills and your some like building data, and we can help you compile all the data analysis and some like a very standard way that the investors can understand. So you can use that information, your data, your products to go to talk to those investors. I think now there are many those type of data or consulting companies. They are trying to do this, but the thing is like maybe too many. They need to work together. Otherwise, they may disagree with each other on the
Yeah.
fundamentals and the measurement.
Yeah. So a famous saying that I always hear is that we already have a lot of data in real estate. It's just a matter of cleaning and organizing it in order to obviously promote this movement further down the road.
That's true.
Yeah. Can you talk to us more about the the industry standards that are needed? Because you mentioned obviously like LEED and all these different certifications, and then when it comes to like Fannie Mae and getting the green mortgages, but is there anything else like another industry certification or standard that would be needed in order to get the entire holistic sense of sustainable real estate?
I think it's very hard to have one golden standard because even for sustainability, there are multiple like very multiple like angles, multiple angles to look into this. I mean, for energy efficiency, I think like lead energy start mainly about this, and that's for the US. And then I think for UK they will have a BREEAM, and China has another one. Singapore has another one. They have different names but similar things like a rating system, the points system.
Yeah.
And then this healthy building is not just the energy efficiency but also the health aspect, the indoor air quality and the comfort level and like that. Then they have a well and a fit well, I think here. And I think that's the international ones. And then now I think they are building up some like energy and health and also the resilience, say in terms of like future proof against future like flooding and the wildfire, extreme heat and all this. I think this one may be something like emerging. The energy efficiency is like the most like matured or well established because already like 20 years. And then the healthy buildings relatively new, especially after COVID, people paid attention to this. And the climate resilience is even newer. And I think it's very little going on. It's very, yeah, I guess will take some more time. But this one is so important because this is a very important side of the sustainability, and it's very tangible because when the disaster hit, then it's a big financial loss, right? The mortgage will get defaulted,
Yeah.
and also the asset value will decline, will even lose value, and the insurance cost associated with this climate risk exposure also very now the insurance cost also a big factor. So I think the insurance industry may be a big like stakeholder in this climate risk side, and it will push other parties to work together to address to measure this climate risk.
Professor, can you talk to us about the role of prop tech and innovation in getting to net zero?
Actually, I'm not that very big expert on the property tech. And net zero, I think basically it's just a concept. It's not like very complicated. Basically, the building, what you consume energy should be less than what you can produce, right? If you put solar panels on your roof and you can produce some energy, and then what you consume should be less than that, you are uh, net zero, or even produce more energy, right? So that's basically this. And in terms of technology, I think mainly the building technology. So we always say if you want to decarbonize your buildings, we always say it's so many pathways, but we group them into five pathways, and each one will have a lot of technology in that. The first one will be we call the light retrofit. So basically the LED lighting and all the thermal stack. So basically like a smart building. So you can really use sensors to control, right? So basically when people leave, when there's nobody there, yeah, you automatically turn off the lights. For example, like that, you will automatically adjust the temperature. So that's the light retrofit, if like if this building. Then the deep retrofit will be, oh, you need to change your facade, you need to change your structure, you need to change your insulation system, and to improve your energy efficiency. So that will be a lot of capex, very more expensive. Then you will have like a fuel switch, mainly switch from fossil fuel to electricity, or we call it electrification. So I think the technology there is a big technology, the heat pump now. Now more and more adoption of the heat pump to
Yeah.
replace the traditional AC and the natural gas based winter heating and become a heat pump, right? More efficient, only use electricity. And then solar panel renewable energy. And then last one will be like the city's electricity grid, power grid. That's a free lunch for individual building owners because you don't need to take care of the city's power grid. The mayor need to, but it's like if the mayor clean up the grid and become more renewable energy instead of fossil fuel power plant, and then if you use electricity from the city grid, and naturally you will be cleaner. So that's how five aspects. Each one will have like uh some investment and some returns, and in each basket will be a lot of technologies.
If we were to have a crystal ball here, where do you see the industry specifically on the green economy within the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm not sure because actually now it's a lot of pushback here, right? In the United States, and I
Yeah.
think always, no matter whether pushback or not, and this is the short-term thing, but always Europe is the leader on this. In terms of the regulations and industry participation and the capital impact investment, always Europe and always the leader, and the US always follow. And I think that's true. And Asia and Latin America, I think they are catching up very fast. And also they have some like we call the second mover advantage. It's not like a first mover advantage; it's a second mover advantage. Because so basically they are now in the fast growth period, right? Especially some Asian countries, maybe also African countries. Now they are consuming a lot of energy, not just for buildings, but also for manufacturing, for production. But now we have better technology than 30 years ago when China was growing the fast, than 100 years ago when the US and Europe, they were growing at that time, the very fast production. Now these second movers, they have better technology because we are at this technology time and have better information and understand how to collaborate and to do some international collaboration. So I think the hope will be in the fast growing other places but overall we have the technology shared by everyone. But I feel the second mover advantage will be very important, and they are the biggest emitters, like China and India and other places. I think if we want to say how this 5-10 years, I think that key thing is to look at those economies.
Professor, thank you so much for your time. I have one more question that I'd like to ask you. which would be if you were advising an investment manager, an upcoming developer, or someone who wants to get into the whole sustainability and green building movement, what piece of advice would you tell them and how to position themselves and their company for the coming years?
I don't think I can give any advice because I didn't do enough practice. I'm just an academic. But I feel the thing is really look at the bottom line. Don't just because of passion or whatever, then start doing sustainable investment. Really look into the financial bottom line and the risk return of those type of asset. And in some niche market, then you will really see some like this green premium or sustainability premium. So if you want to do more like this type of investment, really to identify the niche market that the end users they are willing to pay, so that you can align your business value and also your sustainability goal.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Professor, for your time. Where can people find out more about your work and all the publishings that you have with MIT?
Yes, you are welcome. So I have my personal website and my lab's website. Feel free to explore.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Professor. I appreciate the time and it was great chatting with you.
Okay, later when you post your podcast, please send me a link.
Thank you. Will do. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.